Hey guys, Nunnally here, and I just wanted to discuss a little bit the most often quoted verse in the Bible. No, it's not John 3:16. Now, according to surveys, studies that have been done, it's the first few verses of Matthew chapter 7. You'll recognize them pretty quickly. Jesus said there, "You do not judge lest you be judged, because the way that you judge, you will be judged. And by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you." So, when we make a commitment to follow God with all of our heart, soul, and strength, is this text telling us, commanding us to suspend all critical thought? Like, for example, making business decisions or deciding who to marry or making investments. Or what about buying a house or a car or insurance? Does that mean that all of that's off the table and you just kind of do what the first thing that comes along, or totally follow a feelings approach? My question is, why then does the rest of the Bible tell us to exercise critical discernment and wisdom and to be able to recognize truth from error and then be able to follow it? I guess maybe would it help you to know, if you continue to read in Matthew chapter 7, in that same passage, Jesus also says that we should get the beam out of our own eye so that we can see clearly to get the speck out of our friend's eye. In the same passage, he says, beware of false prophets. Well, how are you going to know that they're false unless you think carefully about the message that they're bringing? He says, don't give to dogs what is holy. Don't cast your pearls before swine. Well, how do you know what constitutes dogs and swine, and what's the difference between holy and unholy, or what's precious and what's common? It sounds like in the same passage that Jesus is actually saying that you've got to be thinking carefully about life choices. I wonder if it might not help if we introduced another passage into the equation. Did you know that there's another version of this same saying in the Bible? Yeah, it absolutely is. Go to Luke's version of what Jesus is saying there in Matthew 7. And in Luke chapter 6, you hear these words, and I think it really clarifies what Matthew has kind of given us the shorthand version on. There he says, don't judge and you won't be judged. Same language, but then he continues. The Luke's version says, and don't condemn so that you won't be condemned. And pardon and you will be pardoned. So what Luke is reporting that Jesus says is, what we should not do is engage in condemnatory and unforgiving judgmentalism. And there is a difference between careful and biblical judgment as opposed to unhelpful, unconstructive, destructive judgmentalism. Those words might sound the same, judgment and judgmentalism, but they're a far cry different when you look at the way that the Bible treats the difference between the two. One is constructive and helpful, the other is destructive, discouraging, and unhelpful. Well, the rest of the New Testament, along with this passage in Luke chapter 6, requires that we accurately assess essential matters having to do with what we believe and how we live our lives out, the moral part of our lives, how we treat other people, etc. Now, the reason that the unbelieving world has picked up on this shorthand version of Matthew chapter 7 is that it gives them the wiggle room to be able to write their own ticket, to sign their own check, to do whatever they want to do, and to not have their motives or their actions scrutinized by anyone, believer or unbeliever. What's sad is this. The church seems to have simply followed suit with that whole approach, to the point that everything seems to be a jump ball, a matter of personal opinion. Nobody can be held accountable for anything, and the result of that is that basically anything goes. Is this what Jesus intended when he said, "Don't judge lest ye be judged"? Not according to the rest of the passage in Matthew chapter 7, not according to that parallel version we found in Luke chapter 6, and not according to the rest of the New Testament. So how do we get back on track with this? We read the Bible correctly and completely. We read it in context, and we use common sense when we apply it. Look, it's not rocket science. It really isn't. This business of reading the Bible for ourselves, getting the basic, and there's only a few principles of reading in context, just like we listen to someone's telephone conversation or a voicemail in context. It's really just not that difficult. Look, if you want more information, material on this subject, a long time ago I wrote an article entitled "Judging Without Being Judgmental," and it's available online. You'll find it really easily under my name. And feel free to use that and do a complete Bible study on your own on this difference between careful and godly and constructive biblical judgment as opposed to ungodly, fleshly judgmentalism. And, you know, in the future, you can also join us at Wave Nunnally on Facebook and YouTube for more in-depth studies of all kinds of biblical topics similar to this. I look forward to seeing you there sometime.